Good day everyone. Today we will talk about control flow comments. But before that, we should get familiar with some input and output comments in MATLAB. We will write several functions in order to get familiar with concepts of function and control flow together. So let's go to our MATLAB. And you know that from now on, when we want to write a code, we will write a new script or a function. But before that, let's review some input-output comments in MATLAB. In order to get a value, we will use an input comment. For example, you want a user to enter a number. So you write x is, and we use the comment input. Now, if in the input comment we put only a code with nothing inside it, and then you press an enter, you will see the screen only there, which is the cursor is blinking and is waiting for an input. How do we know it's waiting for an input? If you go down the bottom, you see that it's written waiting for an input. So you can write, let's say, 3.4, and then you press enter. Or we can actually write something like, please enter a number, so the user knows that he or she should not enter a character. And you know, if you put a semicolon, it will be the echo off. In other words, I am entering 3.14, and when I press enter, I don't see the value of x, whereas the value of x is 3.14. Now, another way of initializing a variable is by using this input. So I can actually enter the values into x. Now, assume I have x and I want to display it. X has been calculated and I want to see what is the output. In order to display it, I am using a comment called disp. And what I do in the disp, I can write disp x. And when I press enter, I see the value of x. Or I want to give some information regarding to the x. So what I can do is, I can either write disp, and here I will say the value is, and you see that it's written the value is, and then I can have the disp x. So if I have these two together, like the value is, and then I have the disp x, and I press enter, it says that the value is 3.14. Now, if we want to have it in one line, so what I have to do is this. I write disp, and open a square bracket, and I write the value is, and here I will convert the variable x into a string. So I will use num to str, and I put x, and then when I press enter, it says that the value is 3.14. Here, if you notice, 3.14 is a string because I'm using the command num to str. If you write something like disp, and here like the value is, and then you put the value x, you will get an error because this is not a possible way of using the display comment. Even if you put a comma, you will get an error because you can have only one parameter as an input argument to this function. Of course, the good thing about MATLAB is that if you get an error like this, you can always click and it sends you to the functions that they have and tells you that where the error actually occurring. Here you can see what is the syntax, and it tells you that how you can get to the example, so on. So let's clear the screen and clear all the variables, and let's open the script. Before opening the script, if you remember in previous lecture, we made an M file and also we made a function. How do we know that this is a function? If you look at the icon, it has this fx. Now, I want to make a new script, and inside this script, I want to simply read a value and display the value. So let's clear the screen. Let's have a is input, enter a number, and then we can put a semicolon. We can read another number, b, and I can say that c is a multiplied by b minus a plus b. So here you can see we have also the parentheses, and I want to see what is the value of c, and I use the display command, the disp, and what I display in here is let's say the value of c is, and num2str c, and I put semicolon at the end. Now I save it, so let's call it test2, and I want to run it. In order to run it, I come here and I press the run. So it says enter a number. I enter number 6.2. It says enter another number, and I enter 3, and it says that the value of c is 9.4. Now here we have seen how we can do some input and an output inside a script, and of course we can do it inside a function. As I mentioned, today we want to start to see some control flow, and the first thing that we see in the control flow is if and else. In order to do if and else, we can get back to our script and add a few terms into it. For instance, I want to see which number of a or b or is greater. So let me even create a function. I come to the new, and I can have an script and start with a function, or I can directly choose a function, which tells you what is the general syntax of a function. Now I want to write a function which does not return anything, and I want to call the function to be myfunc, and as an input I will have, let's say, a and b to the function. So what I want to do, I want to see which number is greater. So I say that if a is greater than b, then disp num2str a is greater than num2str b. Else, now in the case of else, we'll say that we can copy and paste what we have in here. Then we say that number b is greater, or we can keep the number a is less than or equal to number b. Now in MATLAB, when you are using if or if and else, when the command is finished, you have to put end. If you remember, if you are familiar with some program like C, in order to define the scope of these if and else, we used to use some curly brackets. But here we don't use curly brackets. Curly brackets have different meaning. Now let's save it as myfunc, and let's get back to our test. And what I do, I will say myfunc, and I am sending a and b as an input into the function, and let's see what is happening. Now I am running it again. It says enter a number, and I enter number 5.2, and then I enter number 3.9, and it says that the result is 11.18, and it says 5.2 is greater than 3.9. As you can see, 5.2 and I of is, there is no space between them, so I can always go here and put one space before that, and I save it. So this is how we can use if and else inside MATLAB. As you see, we can use the logic comparisons like greater equal, or less and less than equal. I can always put the equality also here, so it is greater or equal to, so I can have this one up. So these functions, what it does, if A is greater or equal than B, it displays it. Now, assume we want to check equality or non-equality. Now, when you have an script or function and you want to put some comments, we put percentage. Percentage means that you are about to insert a comment. Whatever you write will not be evaluated. Equality is shown by 2 equal sign, and non-equality or inequality is displayed by the tilde and equality. So this means that A is not equal to B, and this means that A is equal to B. So we can have the condition like if A is not equal to B, this A and B are not equal. And we can simply finish it here. Or we can put else, and with this A and B are equal. So I'm saving it and I run my test, and let's see what happens. Let's give a value 4 and value 6, and here we start to get an error because it was actually a good example. If we go to the function, we see that we have used this instead of disp, so it gives you an error. So here, this is the program that I ran, and I face an error. So it says that on line 6 of test 2 we have an error. I click on it and it goes to line 6. Now if we go one step back, it says that in my func on line 8 we have an error. What is the error? Undefined function this. So I click on here, it sends me to the place so I can correct it, and I have actually 2 of them, and I will save it. Then I come here and I run it again. Now let's say number 3 and number 7, and it says that the value is 11, and then it says 3 is less than 7. A and B are not equal. We can of course write it in a form that it displays what are A and B. num2 str A, and then here we have num2 str B, and we close this bracket. We can have the same thing in here in case of equality, and of course they are equal. Then let's run the program again, and let this time use equal numbers like minus 3.2 minus 3.2, and it says that the minus 3.2 and minus 3.2 are equal, and minus 3.2 is greater than or equal to minus 3.2 as we had it in here. Now you can play with if and else, and you can have nested ifs inside each other in order to have further comparison. In the next lecture we will continue to work with nested ifs, and then we will see what will happen if we want to have some iteration and some looping. So we will introduce some comments like for and while. I hope that you enjoyed today's lecture. Be seeing you in the next lecture.